USA Warrior Stories is a not-for-profit organization designed to record, archive, and share videos of veteran stories, to help veterans make a connection with one another and to help us all better understand their sacrifices for our freedoms.
I graduated from high school in Montgomery County, Maryland, Wheaton High School, class of '61. And by summer of '64, I dropped out of community college and I got my draft notice. So I knew I would have to be drafted. So that's when I went down to talk to the career people in Silver Spring, Maryland. I talked to the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps. And I knew I didn't want to spend 4 years in the Navy or 4 years in the Air Force, and I didn't want to be a draftee for 2 years, so I picked the Marine Corps.
The contract: to enter the service of the United States Marine Corps and to report to such posts or stations of the Marine Corps as I may be ordered to join.
I decided I wanted to enlist, and my dad was a retired Chief Warrant Officer of the Air Force, and he said, whatever you do, when you join the Marine Corps for 3 years, don't volunteer. I said, well, why not, Dad? He said, because you might get killed. So I joined anyway. I did a lot of research about the militaries, and I read that the Marine Corps boot camp was the toughest of all, and probably the toughest training. 4 months, I think 4 or 5 months. Only Special Forces would be harder. But what's amazing, I was only, 19, and I couldn't believe how easy boot camp was. I kept my mouth shut and did what I was told. Well, it turns out, for some reason, someone along the line, chain of command, decided because of my background, I might do better in the tank corps. And I became a driver on a special tank that the Marine Corps used. And so when I went to Vietnam in September of 1965, I was in a battalion command south of Da Nang called Hill 55. But that was where the Marine Corps had its headquarters, called Hill 55. And it's called 55 because it's 55 feet above sea level. And there were about 40 of us to be assigned tank platoons, okay? And it turns out, the colonel said he needed a logistics clerk. And I'm with these guys thinking, that sounds pretty good, a logistics clerk. We're on Hill 55. They have a bathroom, it looks like a telephone booth, but it's a bathroom. They're building a cafeteria, and I was told that once a week on Friday you could watch an outdoor movie. And I'm thinking, that sounds a lot better than going out in the field and getting shot at. So I raised my hand. The key thing is, I said yes, even though my dad told me not to volunteer. I volunteered. So out of that 13 months, the first 8 months I spent as a logistics clerk, safe. And then when things went south in 1966, and they went even further south after Tet in January 1968, I was basically a rear echelon type person for about 8 months. And then finally I went out to my platoon. I was a commander of a three-person anti-tank carrier. It's called an ONTOS, O-N-T-O-S, ONTOS. Only weighs 10 tons and has 3 people, a driver, a loader, a driver, and a commander. And instead of having one gun turret, it's got 6 recoilless rifles, 3 on the left side and 3 on the right side. In a firefight, you had to reload these 106s. The loader had to get out to load, which is not particularly a safe thing to do. So when you're in a firefight, you can't, in the middle of a firefight, have the loader get out to load, so you have to move 400 or 500 yards or farther away from the firefight so he could reload it. I only went on 3 search and destroy operations, and usually we would counter small enemy enclaves. Most of them were VC, and they had no tanks. They had some mines that they placed. But usually we show it, they all run away. And at night, they own the night. Now that was back before we had all these new weapons and all, you know. But the daytime belonged to us, the nighttime belonged to them. In those 3 or 4 months I was an ONTOS commander, Each one was scary, but the last one, when I got hit, I was lucky. I got hit in the head, either shrapnel from the anti-tank missile that hit my tank, my ONTOS, or it was shrapnel, or it was part of the metal of the tank. Nobody knows. I got hit. I got knocked down in, and I was bleeding profusely, all over here. I never passed out, so I called. We had a corpsman with us. Anytime we went on a search and destroy operation, we'd have a corpsman. The corpsman jumped in my little tank, my ONTOS. I'm going like this. I said, "Do me a favor. I don't feel any pain, but can you make sure my eyeball's intact?" And he says, "Yeah, move your hand." He said, blood squirting, and he sticks his finger and pokes the eyeball. I go, "Oh, what are you doing?" He says, "Your eyeball is okay, but there's shrapnel all around here and here." And I was in a medevac chopper. We had 4 Marines on stretchers. All of them were in and out of consciousness. I was the only one that was conscious, standing up with my head wrapped up. 10 minutes off the ground, the crew chief comes in to me, says, "Greene, I got good news for you." I said, "What's the good news?" He said, "You're going to the hospital ship Repose in Da Nang Harbor." I said, "Who cares?" He looked at me and said, "Greene, when was the last time you saw a round-eyed female?" I said, 13 months ago, I think. He said, "Well, your luck. All the nurses on the hospital ship Repose are nurses, females." And I went, "Okay." And a couple of guys who were in and out of subconsciousness heard that and started smiling. 20 minutes later, what happened? Crew chief comes out, "Greene, I got bad news for you." "What is it now?" You're going to Da Nang Hospital." He said, "Greene, there are no female nurses at Da Nang Hospital." I went, "Oh." So I looked at him and said, "Well, once again, the Marine Corps is screwing around with me," and he starts laughing. I never had any pain. When I got there, they took me into the emergency room, something out of MASH. And there were 4 or 5 men being operated on in the emergency room there. And I'm looking, they took all my clothes off to see where else I'd been hit in the hand. And while I'm looking up from the bed, I see a cross dangling from a neck. And this guy says, "Greene, I'm a Catholic, I'm a priest, and we don't know how serious your head injury is, but I thought you might want to confess, go to have confession with me." And I said, "Father, I haven't been to church in 2 or 3 years, and you want to have me do a confessional here in this situation?" He said, "Look, I can handle that. Just tell me, are you sorry for all your sins?" I said, "Yes, sir, I am." So he gave me absolution right then and there. I couldn't believe it. I was in the hospital in Da Nang, China Beach Hospital in Da Nang. I was there September 5th, and then in probably, I was there until mid-November recuperating. And that's when I got my Purple Heart. The gentleman, the 2-star general in charge of the operation in Vietnam came with the cameraman and took a picture of me receiving the Purple Heart, and it was on Stars and Stripes. When I got out, I reported back to the first sergeant on Hill 55. And the first thing he said to me was, "You got shot September 5th, the month you're supposed to rotate." I said, "I know that." He says, "Well," he said, I'm not going to send you back to your platoon because you're still recuperating. So he said, what you're going to do, you should be able to get out of here by November, late November, because I was in the hospital for 6 weeks. So he gave me a job on Hill 327 with 3 other men, and our job was to stay up at 327 was a big hill just next to the hill, next to Da Nang, the airstrip. And our job every night was to stay up one person at a time. Anytime we saw flares coming from mortar rounds, we would call in the coordinate, and a C-47 would show up. When I left Vietnam, I had 92 days to do, and I was in Okinawa. And the gunnery sergeant said, "Greene, you've got 92 days to do." I said, I know, Gunny, I know that. No, first sergeant. I said, "No, that's first sergeant, but I've done some research, and it looks like if I have 90 days or less to do, I can get out of the Marine Corps right away." He says, "So what?" I said, "Well, I have 92 days here. Could I just stay here for 2 days?" He said, "Greene, you're going to spend all 92 days. Where do you want to go?" I went, "Oh, no, give me a break." He said, "No, you got to spend all 92 days. So he said, "Where do you want to go?" I said, well, I'm from Montgomery County, Maryland, probably DC or Northern Virginia. He sent me to OCS school as a police sergeant. So I was a short timer for 92 days and at OCS Academy in Quantico. That was the best tour I ever, nobody messed with me at all. And for 92 days, I did nothing but sit on my ass. About 3 months after I got out of the Marine Corps, I had the cataract removed, and the VA decided I was 40% because I was blind to my left eye, 40%. And I was 40% for all these years until more recently I had brain surgery in July of 2023 at Walter Reed. And the doctor told me 8 hours of surgery, and he told me the tumor was benign, so you're okay. You'll have some problems on your eye muscles, your facial cheek muscles, and your smile, but that may go away after a while. I learned to live with my problems. More recently, the VA decided I might need some kind of antidepressant because of all that's happened to me. So they put me on a half a tablet of some which I take every day before going to bed. But I've seen a lot of men who've been crippled, especially at the Vietnam Wall, and my heart goes out to them. I volunteer about 10 hours a week here at the Brevard Veterans Museum. I like volunteering at the museum because I like to educate the population about how important the military is. And when I'm in DC in my Capitol Hill condo block with the Capitol, I'm a volunteer at the wall. I do that about 15 hours a week.
Chosen through a nationwide anonymous selection process, the memorial represents the wound the war inflicted on the country, while also offering a place for healing and remembrance.
When I'm a volunteer at the wall, I go down to the wall and talk to the people from all over the country, all over the world. They come and they want to talk about what the war meant and all. I say, look, I'm not pro-Vietnam War. I'm not anti-Vietnam War. We're only honoring the men and women. By the way, 8 women were killed in Vietnam. We're honoring their service, so we don't talk politics. What keeps me going is just my sense of humor and knowing I can volunteer at the wall or volunteer here and help educate the general population.